everybody. It's Nathan with the Birds and the Lees. Good to see you, or actually not see you because we're all still in quarantine. To hear you, maybe even to hopefully hear from you, but hopefully everybody's doing okay. I am here in my home, our sanctuary, our fallout shelter in the midst of COVID-19 with my lovely wife, Kim, who's actually in another room, not because we're staying 6 feet apart, but because it's much easier to do a podcast this way. And we're on Zoom tonight, which is something we've never done before. Kim, how are you?
I'm doing well.
She's doing well. And you guys can't see, but she looks extremely happy. That's a
Oh
joke
my.
because, that's just a joke. I'm sorry. She is very happy. We've had a lot of projects and we're just enjoying all this time at home for the next 2 months with our children. So this has been awesome. But hey, tonight we have two very special guests, two very good friends of ours who are joining us for the conversation tonight. And they have been friends with us. Man, how long has this been? This has been like, 10 years now we've known each other.
Yeah, over 10 years now. Yeah.
10 years. Wow. Okay. Well, it's Mike and Robin Matthews, and Mike is a pastor. He's in ministry. He and I have done ministry together. Robin, what are you currently doing?
Ministry wise, I lead worship at our church.
Okay.
And kind of do some women's ministry stuff.
Cool. Awesome. Well, they have been friends. Like I said, they've been friends with us for several years now, and I know that both of them have a passion for ministry and have done some really awesome things at their church where they're currently at, and it's been neat to see how God's been using that. But tonight we just wanted to have a conversation with them, and the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hand it over to them. And why don't we start with Mike? Hey, Mike, why don't you let everybody know where you're at and kind of what ministry you're involved in right now at your church, and just kind of let us know where you are.
All right. Well, my name is Mike Matthews. I'm the lead pastor at a small independent Baptist church in Western PA called First Baptist of Claysville. We are very rural, but we are probably 25 to 35 people on a regular Sunday that attends prior to the whole COVID-19 drama. One of the big things that our church is part of right now is with Grove City College. I am working with other rural pastors to equip rural ministry to be healthy and to help influence the culture. You know, a lot of times they say culture comes from the city to the country, but we believe at this project that rural ministries can influence bigger cities for Christ.
Awesome. Now, when we met, we were in ministry in the Pittsburgh area. How far are you guys outside of the Pittsburgh area?
15 minutes.
15. So you're 50 minutes.
15,
okay,
20 minutes.
It's interesting to lay that out just geographically, that 15 minutes outside of Pittsburgh would be considered rural ministry, which I've been there, so I totally get that and I totally understand. Whereas 15 minutes from where we are, we're still city proper of Dallas. And rural in Texas is, if you go rural, there's nobody there. I mean, there's literally nobody there except cows. Okay, so that's cool. Now, you said you've been involved with Grove City.
Yeah, it's a collaborative with Grove City College, and it's called the Rural Project on Rural Ministry. And at the end of it's a 5-year project.
Okay.
And there's about 20 other pastors involved from Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Ohio. And at the end of the 5 years, the payoff will be each church will get an internship from a Grove City College student to fill a need to fill a need that we can't meet right now.
Okay, so there's an element of providing a vocational experience for someone who's wanting to go full-time ministry.
Yes, and give them a real look at what it's like to be in rural ministry and the difficulties and the challenges of that. And it's a 5-year commitment for every pastor involved.
That's awesome.
And we're broken out in different cohorts. Like I'm in the Appalachian cohort, so that's Western Pennsylvania, like West Virginia. So we're spread out throughout the tri-state area.
Okay.
And
That's
but
awesome.
But on the home front of ministry, what I'm trying to do is equip our church members to do ministry and to understand that it's not always on the pastor. Like I'm not, the answer to ministry cannot be just the pastor that does it all or the pastor's family. And that happens a lot in small town churches or in big time churches too. But the one thing I said before we started is with our church having to go online, and it's forced people to actually step up and volunteer, and it's been going really well.
Yeah, and that's awesome to see. Real quick, I'm going to come back to you in just a second, Mike, because there's some things I want to dig down in there. But Robin, I just wanted you to give you a little bit of this kind of the same question. You said obviously you've been involved with worship, you've been leading some of women's ministry, but you've also been involved in some other areas career-wise where I think you could qualify them as ministry. Not necessarily specifically ministry focused, but they were serving the community, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I've been working in the nonprofit world for probably 12 or 13 years, I guess now. Mm-hmm. So for 8 years, I worked for Dress for Success, which is a nonprofit that helps women get clothing for interviews and work attire and things like that. And then now I work for a program called Faith in Action, and we help pair volunteers with seniors or people with disabilities who might need some help with light housekeeping or transportation to doctor's appointments or respite care, things like that.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
I just wanted to so as a whole, your family, you're much like where Kim and I are, in that there's a member, there's not just one member of the family who's involved in either the nonprofit world or ministry. Both are, obviously very involved in both the church, but then there's other things outside of that. And I would say, even Mike being involved with the cohort program and how he's describing that with Grove City, there's all this other stuff that's going on around the church, outside of the church, that you're involved in. And I think that's really cool. Kim, did you, as we were kind of sitting down, like I said, this is supposed to be a conversation and not necessarily just me droning on. But one of the things Mike said was, obviously the picture of church that some people sometimes have is that the pastor comes in with his family and he's the one, they are the one who are kind of making the church work and operate and taking care of all the stuff. You guys are coming from, again, when we met, you guys were involved, we were involved in the same church, and we've kind of both ended up in places that are very different from where we met, at a larger church in Pittsburgh, in the Pittsburgh area. By the definition of churches here in the Dallas area, we've got about 300 people, which isn't considered to be a huge church at all. But there's kind of the same mindset of ministry. When the transition from the big church kind of environment to the smaller church environment, what were some of the challenges in that? How did you guys feel about that transition? How did that go for you guys?
It's definitely a transition going from, one of the largest churches in the area where we attended and did some ministry, mm-hmm. to then
not having resources.
Right. I mean, it's definitely our dog. We have very needy dogs.
Yeah.
Have one of those too.
They are not respecting our podcast time.
Yeah. Right, and they do not understand social distancing.
Yeah.
We've got one.
Like our human child is totally fine with leaving us, alone for a while. The dogs don't understand that.
That's amazing.
One wants to play ball, one has to go outside. It's always.
Yeah, they down, Maggie.
Oh, we have one that you have to open the door for him to act like he's wanting to go outside. You have to open the door for him before he'll eat his dinner. Because he doesn't go outside. You just have to open the door and close it.
Oh, well.
So
he just wants to make sure the door's still open.
Maybe it's a ministry family thing that we have unique pets.
I think so. You give all your time to all these people. Give us your time.
Yeah.
So we're gonna develop all these neuroses. So you have to give us time.
I'm gonna try to separate these dogs because they want to play ball.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you take Bingo over with you? Okay.
Yeah, we're sorry, guys.
Oh no, this is awesome.
I tried timing it out. I thought I had their potty breaks down. I really never saw myself being a dog person, but here we are. Here we are, owning dogs.
Yeah, dogs can be like toddlers. So Mike, you were saying resources. That was a big one.
Yeah, I mean when I was when I was at our former church, I was working full time in nonprofit, and I felt like when I was a volunteer, even in our church setting, I had more resources as a volunteer than I do now as a paid pastor. And it's not anyone's fault. It's just the nature of the size of our church and what we can do financially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and we experienced the same thing in that it's been interesting that in our journey to where we are now, we've gone to progressively smaller churches. And we've seen that we've experienced that as well as the resource issue has become the thing that has, and it almost seems like it's more of the I don't even know how to say it. The non-human resource is what we lack in, because you just mentioned more of your people are stepping up to serve, which is awesome, which is what we want, and is what we're seeing in our church as well. Even before COVID, we did a study on how many people were serving our church, and we have like an 82% participation rate in serving.
Wow.
That's a blessing.
It's a blessing. What's interesting is, yet you look around, you go, man, we still got all these gaps we got to fill. How does that happen? Because we have so many serving. It's trying to figure out, okay, so where is everybody serving? But it sounds like you guys, and I've seen some of this on Facebook. Was that a culture that you feel like you guys had to come in and really speak to that in your church? Was that another one of the challenges, is kind of changing that mindset?
Yeah, the timing of this pandemic is odd to me, because for 4 years now I have been preaching from the pulpit. We have to we have to be the church. Church is bigger than the building we attend, and our church has a history of pastors not sticking around. They hire new pastors out of seminary, when I came here, I'm the first pastor they hired from the area that has roots here. So okay. I told them I don't see this as a stepping stone. I want to do life here. I want to help this church thrive for the gospel here in Washington County and throughout the world. So it really was a culture that slowly but surely we had to foster, and people had to buy in. I had to earn credibility, and that takes time.
Yeah.
What has been your favorite part of the whole experience of going from where you were at to where you are now? What is when you think about the joy, the best thing that happened in that transition, what was it?
I guess I love being a pastor, and I love getting to see people actually walk in their gifts, to actually see that Jesus can use them too. And I think that, being a person with cerebral palsy and all those stereotypes that come with that, I think the fact that people in our church community saw God using me is dawning on them that he can use them too. So that's my biggest joy, is seeing people realize that, hey, the same Holy Spirit that's in Pastor Mike or other favorite pastors on TV or whatever is the same Holy Spirit in me too. And that I'm called. My greatest joy is seeing people become disciples and not just say a sinner's prayer and wait for heaven to come.
Yeah. Yes, unfortunately, too often.
So, on that same vein, Mike, I have a short list here of questions for you. Hold on. So within the church itself as a whole, not necessarily yours, what is something you wish you could see change?
I would like to see, I'm not talking about specific my church, but
right.
church in the West, because we're so consumer driven, is that I would like pastors to be seen as shepherds again and real people. We're not going to be perfect, but a lot of times I see the pastor is viewed as an employee of the church, and if we're not perfect and we're not sinless, because we're not going to be, then people judge us a little bit harshly, and it's all about he's not meeting my needs. And what I always tell people is, just because I'm behind the pulpit doesn't mean that I don't need grace and forgiveness too. So I would love to see pastors respected again, just for the work that we do. I saw a study years ago. I don't know if it was Barna, but it seemed it said that pastors were viewed a little bit lower than the plumber profession. I don't know about you, but I think plumbers are a pretty big deal. But just to have just have respect for, like, I don't feel like pastors are, I mean, solid pastors. I'm not talking about like rock star pastors or anything like that, but solid pastors who are trying our best to serve a congregation. Just give us some grace, because we're also maturing as Christians, and we're not going to be perfect. And I try to tell people, don't put me on a pedestal, because I will let you down. But after that moment, when I do let you down, don't give up on me because I let you down.
Yeah. I know Nathan and I have struggled a little bit with not just, I mean, even take the Christian level out of it, right? Like, okay, have grace on me because I'm a Christian, but also have grace on me as a mom or a dad or a husband or a wife, or, whatever the scenario brings. Sometimes, although we have a higher calling as a pastoral family, I often find that sometimes I find that the grace is doled out in much smaller doses when it comes to my kids, or things like that. I have to protect them a little bit from other people's opinions.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing with Robin and I and Reese, is we're pretty transparent about who we are. I try to be the same like I am behind the pulpit that I am outside the pulpit, and I know that gets me in trouble sometimes, but the thing is, Robin, Reese, and I will never be perfect, and I just wish that the people that we serve and that we love would get that. Like, I'm not expecting my congregation to be sinless. We never run out of our need for the gospel of Jesus. So likewise, I would like pastors, because pastors live in isolation a lot of times. We're afraid to let people see our mistakes and our sins, because we have seen people get fired over a moment of transparency, and that's that's scary. A lot of former pastors I'm learning, they go into the IT field because they get burned out on people. So just remember that, you know, not only am I your pastor, but I'm also a husband to Robin, and I'm a dad to Reese, and I'm trying to make it through this life too.
Yeah.
Robin, on the
I don't think.
go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
No, I would just add that I think people, it's easier to judge us than look at their own sins. And I wish people would realize, like, we're trying to live out this Christian life too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Robin, for you, you know, it's always been fun in all the years we've known each other, because I think we have the same kind of dynamic in our families, is we're just who we are. You either just, you know, how do you, and I know for Kim, sometimes there have been moments where it's like, okay, so my husband's the pastor. How much of myself can I be like? Did you ever experience any of that, especially coming into a new church?
Yeah, and I think, like Mike said, we are who we are. I mean, there's no like, this is who they are at church, this is who they are outside. We are who we are. And so, you know, soon after Mike got his pastorate at this church, I started singing in a professional manner, in a musical duo, and we perform all over the place. So I spend most of my evenings in bars and wineries and breweries. And so that was kind of a shock to our church, for a while, like, you know, what's happening here. But, you know, I said, like, I'm exactly where God has called me to be. I don't do anything other than sing, you know, like, I mean, I love on people everywhere I go. Like, I hope that I show the love of Christ wherever I am. So, you know, it really, so I think it was a bit of a shock. And I do think, you know, Mike and I are not the typical, you know, ministry couple, like, you know, like Jim and Tammy Faye Baker.
Yeah.
I mean, we come in, you know, when the Matthews are in the room, because we just like come in like a lion. Like, one of us will probably trip and fall. The other ones will be laughing. Like, we just are always like that. Sometimes it's embarrassing, but
yeah. Well, we're messy people. I mean, I didn't grow up in a Christian home, so I didn't become a Christian until I was like 19. So I don't know all the normal Christian subculture behaviors. So I don't do them. Like when people start saying, I can't believe you watch that music, or you listen to that music, or how can Pastor Mike like pro wrestling? Because I'm a nerd and I love pro wrestling, for your listeners. But the thing is, I didn't grow up in that. So I grew up in the culture of grace. So I was taught by pastors that Jesus forgiven all my sins, and that I'm new in him. But I didn't know that there were certain things like that Christians are not allowed to do certain things. And I think I boggle people's minds, because a lot of people who grew up in a very self-righteous, legalistic home meet Robin and I, and they're like, what is wrong with these two?
And I think that's part of it is, you know, I did grow up in a Christian home, and my parents are amazing, wonderful Christian people who, I mean, I adore. I'm very blessed that they're my parents. But they were very non-judgmental, because I wasn't a Christian until I was about 22. And so I was like this little hippie chick, and, you know, a lot of my friends did things they shouldn't be doing along with me. And they were never judgmental to my friends and stuff. And so, but I did see a lot of fake Christians, you know, just people who, you know, say they love Christ, but it didn't show in their actions. And so I think Mike and I, because we've kind of seen people like that, we just realized we don't that's the farthest thing that we want to be. We want to be authentic for Christ. And if that means that sometimes I throw down the F-bomb or something by accident, it happens. Like, you know, we're not perfect just because we're Christians. We still stub our toe and get angry, or get angry at each other, and
we're sinful. I mean, you know, I once heard a pastor say one time that he's only accountability partner with Jesus because he can't let people in. And that's scary to me, because if you don't let people in your life, if you don't do life with other Christians, you're not going to mature. Mm-hmm. You need people to watch your blind spots. And that takes time. Let me, like, just don't tell everyone that says you're a Christian your deepest, darkest, sinful moment. You know, they have to prove themselves that they can be trusted with your heart. But I can't help it. I have to be who God made me, and that's how I that's why I try helping other people understand. Jesus wants to live his life through your expression of it. He wants to use your personality that he's given you to glorify him. And I can't. I'm never gonna wear a suit when I preach. I'm never gonna wear. You know, I'm never gonna be a King James only Bible thumping preacher. That's just not my style. I'm going to be honest and authentic about the scriptures, but I'm also going to go watch Marvel movies.
So Robin, I asked him a couple questions. Why don't you tell me what's the best part about ministry? Let's start there for you.
To me, the best part about being in ministry is just forming relationships with people. I love to love on people and be able to pray with them. And to me, that's my favorite part, is just forming the relationships.
And what about the opposite of that? The worst or most frustrating?
When her husband won't stop talking about work.
True that. Yes. When you're in ministry, it is hard as a couple to turn it off. It seems like every single conversation ends up back about ministry or church or something, and it's like that can be pretty kind of frustrating.
So how do you, with that being the top frustration, how do you taper that a little bit? And do you have ways to stop that, or is it just a frustration you deal with because that's the way it is?
It's definitely something that we struggle with on a consistent basis. Yeah. And this has been since even when we were dating, before we were married. So we'll be married for 13 years.
Yeah.
So we're still trying to work this out. But, you know, I think sometimes Mike will be talking about it and I'll just say, you know what, like, I'll wait until he's done with that thought and I'll be like, I don't want to talk about ministry anymore. Like, I just have to cut it off. And he's like, oh yeah, okay. I realized I did it.
And I'm, you know, it's something I struggle with because I'm so passionate about the local church, and I want to help Christians become lovers of Jesus. But, you know, the one thing that I'm working on is before I come through the door, I take off Pastor Mike and I become Mike the dad and Mike the husband. Mm-hmm. I've been working on that. I'm not perfect at it, but I'm trying. I'm not gonna lie. I God's really been working on me in that area. You know, we could have. Oh no. Are they still there?
Are you there? Oh,
yes.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing that I'm trying to focus on is the people that want me to be their pastor. I pastor them, but I tend to focus on the one critic, and that will get in my head for a week. Like, oh no, he didn't like what I said, or she didn't like my sermon, or so I've been really focusing on counting the blessings of ministry and then turning it off when I come through the door.
Yeah.
And
Nathan and I have had a similar type struggle from different seasons in our life in different ways. But one of the things that we've had to do is when it comes to, sometimes we just leave the house, right? Like we have to get out, whether it's for a walk or go to the nearest big park, drive to the nearest big park, or even go to the mall and just walk around for the purpose of engaging our mind in something outside of church. That
there you
is
go.
something. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, but and I'm kind of where Mike is. One critic of any time I preach, and then it's kind of like that's all I focus on. So we started having Kim sit in the front row because she's my biggest critic, and so she's the only one I listen to. And so
Yeah.
if I come out the door, and she's brutally honest, because whenever you preach, you get a lot of those claps on the back. Oh, that was great, that was wonderful, and then you go, yeah, you probably weren't listening.
Yeah.
I walk out to Kim and I look at her and she gives me either a hey, that was good, or a
Yeah. Yeah. Robin can always tell me when she's like, I can tell when it's you preaching or when it's Matt Chandler preaching.
Yeah.
She can always tell who I've been listening to that week.
Oh, yeah.
And so I the one thing I have put into practice is if I'm preaching to a certain topic or a book of the Bible, I won't listen to my favorite pastors that have preached on that until I'm done. Because if I do that, Robin can always tell when, like, no one else can tell, but she can tell. Oh, you are listening to John Piper this week, or so.
Yeah, we pick up the mannerisms of others and the way they speak. I totally get that. I'll even do that with the guys I work with. I'll listen to if we are tag teaming the messages. I'll listen to the one the week before, and I'm trying to emulate what he did in some way. So.
Yeah. Well, that's all the questions I have. Do you guys have? I know we always enjoy and laugh and have fun together, just as a couple going out to eat when we, every 10 years when we get to do it.
When Mike comes and has tacos in Texas.
Oh,
Yeah.
yum.
I hope God calls me back there.
But is there any wisdom you have for someone that might be struggling in ministry or getting into ministry, something you really, that lays on your heart you would want to offer that person?
For me, I would just I always, when I start to struggle or I start to feel defeated, I just take it back to, just to the Bible, and I just try to spend time with God and remember, why we do what we do, and just continue to love. I just always want to show love, no matter how, bad things might get or ugly things might get. I always tell Mike, when people go low, we go high. Like, no matter what happens, we don't succumb to those, if someone is upset with us or things like that. Just try to remember why we got into ministry, and that it's all about just showing the love of Christ and pointing people to the cross. How about you?
To pastors, I would just encourage them to make sure you focus on your relationship with the Lord and your spouse, because if the gospel don't work in our home, it's not going to work when you're preaching in your churches. So Christianity has to be real for us, and we really need to make sure that we're maturing in faith, or we will, the toughest time for me in ministry is when I'm doing stuff for God, but I'm not being with God. So make sure that as a couple and as individuals, if you're in ministry, make that time to spend with the Lord.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and I 100% agree. And it's fun to catch up with you guys, because I can sit here and 100% say to anybody who's listening that, you know, everything Mike and Robin have shared is 100% true. You can hear Mike's passion for, you know, for teaching, for leading a community. Robin, you are, yes, absolutely, you love people well. You do, and that's very visible and very clear. You know, and just being very, very real. In fact, when Mike said that, he goes, "I just am who I am." I can remember sitting down talking with him about, you know, assisting with youth ministry, and him telling me he was in a rap group.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That was in the very first conversation, and I'm like, "Oh, we got out of that conversation with the other staff members." He goes, "What do you think?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, that guy. That's the guy we need." And you know, just that real honesty is just one of the best qualities you have. Just that real transparency, honesty, and realness. So, you know, I think having watched everything that's gone on since you guys have transitioned to this role, it's very clear God's working through you guys, and it's fun to see. You know, I feel like the last 10 years for each of us have been this journey that this is where we need to be right now. And I think part of that discovery for us, and I don't know how you guys feel about this, but part of our discovery is looking back, you know, up, down, good, bad, going, okay, yep, now I know why we did that. Now I know why God had us go through that. Okay, yeah, that makes sense now, because now I see where that applies to what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know if you guys ever have those moments of like, oh, okay, yeah, that light bulb just went off.
And then it kind of makes those moments easier in the present when you're going through the tough times and you're like, I don't understand why this is happening, but I know that God will use it down the road as he has, you know, things before.
I one time, and I don't know where I heard this. I don't know if I made this up or heard it somewhere, but I thought, you know, it's funny that, you know, we always talk about knowing what God's will. And I'm like, how much of that is hindsight? Knowing what God's will for your life is looking back and go, oh, okay, yeah, I get it. You know, versus, you know, sticking true to what he's called us to be as believers, all of us. But then looking at the specifics and going, oh, wow, okay, now I understand what all of this was about.
Right.
Now I have a picture. Now I have a better picture. But
and certainly wisdom comes from those hard falls, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Well, hey, I really appreciate your guys' time. Anything else you wanted to throw out there?
Anything else?
We're an hour behind, so we're not going to drag your Friday night out.
Yeah.
Well, considering that the dogs are like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?
They were both sleeping before you called.
Yeah, when we started it, they were being so good, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, we need to just drive them nuts.
Yeah, my voice drives animals crazy. It's what it is. They hear me and they go, oh, that guy sounds like he gets on the floor and rolls around with dogs.
Yeah.
They're just practicing for when we come visit. That's all.
That's what it is. That's what it is. Well, hey, we really, really do appreciate you guys giving us the time for this, and I'm looking forward to hearing and putting this out there for people to hear. I think you guys have a lot of great wisdom for all of us who are in ministry. We definitely pray for your church and just really wish the best for everybody there. Like I said, this COVID-19, Mike even pointed it out. It's amazing that all of a sudden we get into this position. Now we're having to find a new paradigm for doing church. And I think personally, what it's doing is it's making us better.
Absolutely.
It's
I
making
think
us
so
better
too
at what we do. And, you know, we were sitting around as a staff the other day going, you know, in a million years, we talked about doing this stuff, but what we needed was a fire lit under us to get out and actually do it.
And now we have to actually prove that the church is not just four walls.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's the coolest part.
Yeah. And I think that's where you guys were prepared for that. So you already knew that, and you guys already did that well. So anyway, something's happening. You guys can't see in Zoom who are listening, but Kim's entertained by something, and I don't know what it is.
Well, now the human child's coming in saying, hey guys, can we do this later?
Well, yeah.
It was making me laugh. It was the mom face.
Yes, you get it. You get it.
Yeah.
He's over here like trying to plan out the whole evening like we're not doing something.
Hey, that's all right. This quarantine has now led my youngest to kick a shoe into a plate glass like picture frame. So that's where we are right now.
Well, where I am at is I had to tell Reese to take a marker out of his nose today. So, good times. Good times.
Yeah, we are entertaining ourselves. Well, hey,
I was in a meeting this morning, and I had to stop the meeting and let my staff know that the daughter had just hit her head on a wall, and my son was alarming the neighborhood that he got gifts at the front door all at the same time.
Well, yeah, at least he had pants on, and that's a victory. So anyway. Yeah. Well, hey, thank you guys for chatting with us. Definitely, some things were said tonight. I'd love to follow up again and get in a little deeper into some of these subjects. I think there's a lot of good to talk about. But again, we are praying. We hope you guys are doing well during this lockdown, and that hopefully we all get out soon. But happy Easter, by the way. I know that's going to be
you guys
for
too.
All of us, so
yeah, this is going to be strange.
Yeah, it's going to be strange, but you know what? Like you said, it's making us be better at what we do. So
yeah.
All right. Well, you guys have a good week. This is Nathan for the Birds and the Leaves, and Kim. Would you like to say bye?
Yeah, this is Kim.
She's got a dog on screen with her.
Hi, Dash.
This is Nathan, and that's Kim, and I'm with Robin and Mike, and you guys have a happy quarantine, and we will talk to you later.
Talk to you later.